give lots of money, because usually they don't. I remember this in a church, and there was a priest in Lebanon, and they were going to try to build this shrine, and he had a very poor community, and so he tried to go to the rich people and help them, but God had already told him that it was going to be built by the poor, and he was promised he would get this money or that money, and when the time came, they wrote minimal amounts of checks, small donations. But he eventually was able to build the shrine based off of donations like we have here, with this poor lady giving a little bit. And over time, it was the poor community that was donating that allowed it to happen. The Blessed Virgin Mary is the great example of what to give, It is to give everything we have, to say to the Lord, let it be done unto me according to your word. And so what blocks us from living God's will or doing God's will? What are the primary things that block us? Well, sometimes it's pride, sometimes it's anger, sometimes it's other things, but there's usually something that will block us from being able to do God's will. And God's will is something that we have to embrace as love and mercy itself. We really have to intellectually believe that the best thing is to seek and to do God's will. Because if we don't believe that God's will is the best thing, then certainly we won't be dedicated to doing it. The woman in this gospel passage who doesn't give from her surplus wealth, but gives all she had, is a huge mindset shift. Is Jesus really calling people to that? I mean, he didn't call the woman to do it. She kind of did it on her own. And Jesus kind of praises her for this. So somebody who's trying to wiggle out of it might say, well, she did that on her own and Jesus didn't call her to do it. That's true. But he used her, he provided his apostles a teaching through her generosity. And the teaching that he was giving to his apostles, right, is that this woman gave everything she had. That there was a pureness in her heart, there was a pureness in her offering. And that's really what God sees. You can't fool God. Right? And so he does kind of raise the woman up for a lesson to his apostles, maybe to teach them how he wants them to live. Jesus wants his apostles to live in such a way where they give sacrificially, but probably every day. Not just in the perspective of tithing or money, but it's a way of life. It's an attitude of life. It's a way of living. It's ablative love. It's love that is sacrificial. And that is, in the Christian understanding from Jesus' teachings, real love. Love that is willing to make sacrifices, and even heroic sacrifices, for other people. And, as we look into trying to live authentic Christianity, we should probably value very highly the teachings of Jesus and the way Jesus lived. And this mindset and this way of living is so countercultural now. I mean, it used to be that parents just intuitively would live sacrificially for their kids. But now people aren't even having kids because they're not convenient. So we're losing this sense of willingness to sacrifice for a greater good, willing to sacrifice for other people, and really to embrace that the path to happiness really does include the ability to live sacrificially. That there is something about the human person that is able to do great things, or at least little things with great love. And to live sacrificially for Christians is not just something that we esteem, it's a way of life. It's a way of life. Now, you might say, well, that's too hard. We live in a world that everybody worships comfort. Yet, if there is some mechanism that will make our life easier or more comfortable, we will do whatever it takes to get it. We're so socially conditioned today to live in comfort and to make decisions that we think are best for our well-being. So we sacrifice to a certain degree to get comfort. And so you might say the Christian way of life is so confusing for the modern person because we're so hyper socially conditioned for comfort and selfishness. And so Jesus' teachings is saying, make sacrifice and live for others. And it's important to acknowledge the social conditioning that we've received or that's happening in the culture, because that will really identify temptations and struggles for us to do the will of God. There's going to be something socially conditioned in us that doesn't want to live a sacrificial life for others. There's going to be something socially conditioned in us that wants to live for ourselves rather than for other people. And so Christianity then becomes very, very countercultural to people's feelings. Like they say, well, I just feel this is right. I just feel this is right. That's just social conditioning. And so for Christians, we have to really recognize that this sacrificial giving is a way of life that Jesus passed on to us. And there could be no greater sacrifice than the cross. There is no greater love, right, Jesus' teachings, than for a man to lay down his life for his friends. I mean, we can keep reasoning through it and help our disordered souls to try to embrace sacrificial love by just acknowledging that if in the culture more and more people chose to live sacrificially, chose to help and benefit the youth, chose to help and benefit other people, chose to live their life to help to serve, probably a lot of people would be much happier in our culture. And so we can find ways to make it easier for our disordered souls to recognize that if we're going to call ourselves Christian, then sacrificial offering on a daily basis, a blade of love, love that is offering for the good of others so that others may have life, is kind of a sine qua non. It's just absolutely a part of the package. But Jesus had to form his apostles in that, even in the ancient world, which was probably more generous. But even his apostles had to be formed into this way of life. And once again, I think we do really wisely, we act very wisely in asking Our Lady to help us. You know, asking the Blessed Virgin Mary to learn how to make an offering of our life unto the Lord. To learn how to live for other people. To renounce the cultural, social conditioning of seeking comfort, and to renounce the social conditioning of living for ourselves. To embrace the teachings of Jesus and to embrace the Christian life. Jesus never said that being a Christian would be easy. That's nowhere in his teachings. And in fact, he said it's going to be very hard. You have to take up your cross daily. That's a very interesting teaching of Jesus. You have to take up your cross daily. That's sacrificial offering love, right? So the cross of Christ, sacrificial offering love. But to do that with joy. See, that's the key thing. To do that generously, to do that with joy, to do that with love for other people. That's when we know we've been converted. That's when we know we've become a Christian. And so I think asking Our Lady to help us to truly become Christians is very wise. And we do. We do ask the Blessed Virgin Mary to intercede for us and to walk with us, to form us, to educate us in her immaculate and loving heart, a heart that was pierced, a heart that was faithful to the Lord, a heart that was able to say, may it be done unto me according to your word, because I am a lowly slave of God. I am a lowly servant of God, so I will do his will.